If you are 65 and 80 years old and still do the following 8 things, you are a rare gem. Have you ever wondered what it really takes to not just grow older but to thrive in your golden years? Picture this. You wake up each morning feeling strong, sharp, and full of life. Your body moves with ease, your mind stays active, and your days are filled with joy, purpose, and meaningful connections. Sounds ideal, right? Well, this isn't just a dream, it's absolutely possible. But here's the catch. Only a rare few manage to maintain this level of vitality between the ages of 65 and 80. What sets them apart? What are they doing differently to stay independent, financially secure, mentally sharp, and emotionally fulfilled? Today, we're uncovering 8 powerful habits that make all the difference. If you're already doing some of these, congratulations. You're not just aging, you're excelling. And if you're not, don't worry, because it's never too late to start. But before we dive in, let's do something important. Tap that like button and subscribe if you haven't yet. This helps us bring you more valuable insights and reach more people just like you. And I'd love to hear from you. If you find this video useful, comment 1 below. If not, comment 0 so I can improve for you. Alright, let's get started, because what you're about to learn could change your life. 1. Physical health. Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, once said, "If we could give every individual the right amount of nourishment and exercise, not too little and not too much, we would have found the safest way to health." His words ring true even today, for balance in diet and movement is the cornerstone of a long and fulfilling life. In ancient China, Taoist monks believed in the principle of Wu Wei, effortless action, practicing Tai Chi to maintain strength and flexibility well into old age. The wisdom of the past teaches us that caring for the body is not just survival, but a sacred duty to ourselves. I have seen many things in my 78 years. War and peace, boom and bust, the rise of technology and the quiet fading of things once considered sacred. But do you know what truly shakes me? It's not the changing world, it's the way people forget the value of their own independence, surrendering their strength long before time demands it. I live in a small town where the streets are lined with stories. One of them belongs to Daniel, a man I used to see every morning as I took my slow but determined walk through the park. He was 82, but he walked like a soldier, back straight, steps steady, arms swinging with purpose. People greeted him, some admired him, but few knew what he was fighting. Daniel had been a laborer, a builder of homes. His hands had lifted brick after brick, creating places for others to live, yet he himself ended up alone in a tiny apartment with peeling walls and a leaking roof. His wife had passed a decade earlier, his children moved away, and society had a way of discarding the old like an outdated piece of furniture. But Daniel had a rule: never let the world decide when you're done. Every morning he exercised, not in a fancy gym, not with expensive machines, just the pavement, a pull-up bar in the park, and the resistance of his own body against gravity. He cooked his own meals, simple but nutritious. He refused to let others pity him, refused to be seen as fragile. One day, as I rested on a bench, I saw a group of younger men standing near the park entrance, laughing among themselves. One of them muttered something under his breath as Daniel passed. I saw the smirk. The arrogance of youth, thinking that strength was theirs to keep forever. But Daniel stopped. He turned to them with the patience of a man who had seen it all. "You laugh now," he said, "but strength isn't in your muscles. It's in your discipline, in how you treat your body when no one's watching. Time will ask you one day if you took care of yourself. And time is not kind to those who ignored it." The group fell silent. Perhaps they saw, for a brief moment, a mirror of their own future in his weathered but unwavering frame. Not long after, Daniel collapsed in his home. A stroke. They found him 2 days later, still clutching the book he had been reading, his body still strong, but his time finally claimed. At his funeral, those young men were there, and every morning since, one of them now jogs the same path Daniel used to walk, lifting his own weight on the park bars. You see, the lesson is simple. Independence is a choice you make every single day. It's in what you eat, how you move, and how you refuse to let the world decide when you are no longer useful. But let me ask you this. What are you doing today to ensure that time will be kind to you? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear how you are keeping yourself strong, for strength is not just for the young, it is for the wise. 2. Mental sharpness. Socrates once said, "An unexamined life is not worth living." The great minds of history understood that to stop learning is to stop truly living. In ancient China, Confucius emphasized lifelong learning, stating, "He who learns but does not think is lost. He who thinks but does not learn is in great danger." The wisdom of the past teaches us that intellectual curiosity is the key to a mind that never ages. Whether through reading, debate, or mastering new skills, keeping the brain active is a defense against stagnation, because the moment we stop questioning, we begin to fade. I once knew a man named Richard. He was a professor, the kind that made you love learning, not because he forced it on you, but because his own hunger for knowledge was so contagious you could see it in his eyes, bright, restless, always searching for the next great idea. But that was years ago. The last time I saw Richard, he was sitting on his porch, staring blankly at the sky, as if it had stolen something from him. His body was still strong, but his mind, well, his mind had grown tired. I walked up to him, hoping to spark a conversation like we used to. "Richard," I said, "do you still read the way you used to?" He smiled, but it was the kind of smile that carried regret. "I used to think my mind was a fire that would never go out," he said. "But fires need fuel, don't they?" You see, after he retired, Richard told himself he had earned the right to rest. No more lectures, no more books, no more debates over coffee. He had spent his whole life learning. Surely it was time to just sit back and enjoy the quiet. But the quiet grew louder. The days blurred together. He stopped picking up the newspaper, stopped listening to the world. And slowly, the fire inside him dimmed. "Did I stop thinking because I got old?" he said, looking at me. "Or did I get old because I stopped thinking?" His words stayed with me. We live in a world that worships youth, quick to assume that age is a prison, that the mind inevitably weakens like an aging muscle. But I've seen something far more dangerous than old age. I've seen people who let their minds die before their bodies ever do. They stop asking questions. They stop seeking, they trade curiosity for routine, replacing books with television, replacing conversations with silence. They let their memories be their only source of thought, living in a loop of what was instead of exploring what could be. And you know what I've realized? The moment you stop learning, you begin to disappear. I've seen old men learn to paint, women in their 70s master a new language, friends of mine dive into philosophy after a lifetime of working with their hands. They are alive because their minds are still reaching, still growing, still hungry. So tell me, when was the last time you learned something new? Are you feeding the fire in your mind, or are you letting it flicker out? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear what keeps your mind sharp, because at the end of the day, age doesn't steal our intelligence, complacency does. 3. Social connections. Aristotle once said, "Man is by nature a social animal." He believed that no person could truly thrive in isolation, for our greatest joys and deepest wisdoms are found in our connections with others. In ancient China, Confucius echoed this, teaching that strong relationships build a harmonious life. To go beyond yourself and reach others, that is true wisdom. History has shown us time and time again that those who nurture their bonds with family, friends, and community live longer, feel happier, and leave behind a legacy that outlives them. Because in the end, what is life without someone to share it with? I used to know a man named Walter. We called him the ghost of the neighborhood because for years he was just that, a shadow. People knew him, but no one knew him. He had lived in the same house for 40 years, yet there were neighbors who had never heard his voice. Walter wasn't always that way. Least upon a time, he had been the life of the block. Barbecues in the summer, late-night talks on the porch, helping anyone who needed a hand. But life has a way of peeling people away, one by one. His wife passed. His children moved across the country, chasing careers. Friends either drifted apart or were buried beneath the earth. And little by little, Walter let himself shrink. He told himself he was fine, that solitude suited him. He would sit in his recliner, watching the world through a window, convincing himself he didn't need anyone. But loneliness is a disease, and like any disease, it eats away at you slowly, quietly, until one day you wake up and wonder where the years went. One winter morning, Walter had a fall. Nothing dramatic, just a misstep in his kitchen. But it was enough. He lay there for hours staring at the ceiling. realizing that if he didn't get up, no one was coming, no one would knock on his door, no one would check on him. It was a cruel truth. He had made himself invisible. That night, for the first time in years, he did something different. He walked outside. At first, he just sat on his porch, watching life go by. Then after a few days, he started greeting people again. Small things, a nod, a wave. Soon he was stopping at the local cafe, joining the morning crowd. And little by little, the world welcomed him back. By spring, he was a different man. He volunteered at the community center, played cards with the old-timers at the park, became the one people noticed again. And you know what happened? His health improved. He laughed more. He found a reason to wake up in the morning that had nothing to do with just existing. Walter had spent years thinking he didn't need people, but people need people, whether they admit it or not. And that's the lesson. Loneliness isn't just being alone, it's believing you're not needed anymore. But you are needed. There is always someone who could use your presence, your wisdom, your kindness. So tell me, when was the last time you truly connected with someone? Do you reach out, or do you wait for others to find you? Because a bridge must be built from both sides. Let's talk about it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. 4. Financial security. Lao Tzu once said, "He who knows he has enough is rich." The ancient Stoic philosopher Seneca echoed this idea, warning that wealth without wisdom is a burden. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Financial security isn't just about money, it's about peace of mind, about knowing you have enough to live without fear, without dependence. In every civilization, those who planned wisely, saved carefully, and lived within their means found not just wealth, but freedom, the ability to make choices based on joy, not desperation. I have known many men who worked hard, men who woke up before the sun, hands rough from labor, minds consumed with one thought: if I just earn a little more, I'll finally be secure. That was the story of Frank, a friend of mine from long ago. Frank started with nothing. He built his life brick by brick, sometimes literally, as he was a construction worker. He lived by a simple rule: work harder, save more, sacrifice now, so you can enjoy later. And, oh, did he sacrifice! He skipped vacations. He rarely saw his children's school plays. He drove the same old car for decades, never allowing himself any luxury that wasn't necessary. He didn't want to just retire comfortably, he wanted more than enough, so that no one could ever call him poor again. And he did it. By the time he was 68, Frank had saved more money than he ever thought possible. He had investments, properties, a pension that would outlive him. He had finally won the game, but there was one problem. There was no later. His wife had grown used to a life where he was always busy. His children had moved away, grown into adults who barely knew him. And Frank himself? Well, Frank had no idea how to live. He had spent so much time earning and saving that he had never truly learned how to enjoy what he had. I remember sitting with him one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon. He sighed, staring at his hands, the same hands that had built his fortune, now wrinkled and trembling. "You know," he said, his voice tired, "I thought security meant never having to worry about money. But real security, real wealth, it's having people to share it with. It's knowing you used your time, not just saved it." That moment stayed with me. Financial stability is important, essential even. But what good is money if you never allow yourself to live? What good is security if you sacrifice every joy just to feel safe? The balance is in wisdom, knowing when to save, when to spend, and most importantly, when to live. So tell me, what does financial security mean to you? Is it just about numbers, or is it about freedom? Have you found a way to balance saving for tomorrow while still enjoying today? Let's talk in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. 5. Emotional well-being. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Ancient wisdom teaches that true happiness is not found in wealth or status, but in perspective, the way we choose to see the world. The Buddha spoke of the mind as a garden, warning that if we water the seeds of anger and sorrow, they will grow, but if we cultivate gratitude and kindness, our lives will be full of peace. Resilience, gratitude, and purpose are not gifts, they are choices, and those choices shape the life we live. I knew a woman once, Margaret, who had the kind of smile that made you forget even for a moment how hard life could be. She wasn't rich, she wasn't famous, but if you asked anyone in our little town who the happiest person was, they'd say Margaret without hesitation. But here's the thing, Margaret had every reason not to smile. She lost her husband young, left to raise 2 children on her own, with nothing but a small diner and a determination to keep going. The world was not kind to single mothers back then, but Margaret never complained. She worked, she saved, she loved her kids fiercely. Then, life took even more. One of her sons, just 23, was taken in a car accident. I remember the day I saw her standing outside her diner, staring at the sky, hands gripping the edges of her apron. When I walked up, I expected to see anger in her eyes, bitterness, but instead she turned to me and said, "The sun still rises, doesn't it?" That was Margaret. She told me once, years later, that she had made a decision. I could let grief be my whole story, she said, or I could let it be one chapter in a bigger book. She kept living. She found joy in simple things, a cup of coffee shared with an old friend, the laughter of a grandchild, the feel of warm dough between her hands as she made bread in the early mornings. She never denied her pain, but she refused to let it steal the rest of her days. One evening, when we were both much older, she asked me, "Do you know the most valuable thing I've ever learned?" I shook my head. She smiled, that same radiant smile. "Happiness doesn't find you, you have to go looking for it." Margaret lived to be 94, and do you know what? She never stopped looking. The world today feels heavier than it used to, so much anger, so much division. But I wonder how much of that comes from people forgetting that we have a choice in how we react, how we heal, how we wake up every morning and decide whether to see the good or let the bad win. So tell me, what choice do you make every morning? Do you look for the light, or do you let the darkness take over? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear how you keep your heart open, even in hard times. 6. Spiritual growth. The great Persian poet Rumi once said, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Across cultures and civilizations, wise men have taught that suffering is not just something to endure, it is something to learn from. The Stoics believed that every hardship is an opportunity for growth, with Marcus Aurelius writing, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." True spiritual growth is not found in avoiding pain, but in understanding it, transforming it, and finding meaning beyond it. Whether through faith, reflection, or simple gratitude, those who seek meaning always find it. There was a time when I thought life was a straight road. You start at one end, you walk forward, and if you work hard enough, if you love deeply enough, the road will be kind to you. But life isn't a straight road. It twists, it breaks apart. It leads you places you never wanted to go, and for me that place was the inside of a hospital room, standing over my daughter's frail body as she whispered, "I don't think I'm going to make it, Dad." She was 42. Cancer doesn't care. For months I prayed, I begged, I bargained. I told God that if He took me instead, I wouldn't fight Him, but He didn't take me, He took her. And when she was gone, I wasn't sure if I believed in anything anymore. I stopped going to church. I stopped talking to old friends. I sat in my house and stared at the walls, wondering how a man could live this long and still know so little about the world. One day I went for a walk, more out of habit than anything else. There's an old chapel near my house, the kind of place that looks forgotten, but isn't. I stood outside, debating whether I should step inside or keep walking. An old priest came out. He didn't say much, just sat next to me on the steps and watched the wind move through the trees. After a while, he spoke. "Pain makes you think life has no meaning," he said, "but pain is proof that life does." I turned to him, confused. "You loved her so much that the loss broke you," he continued. "That means she mattered. That means you matter. The love doesn't die just because the body does." I didn't say anything, but for the first time in months, I breathed a little easier. That conversation didn't erase my grief, but it made me see it differently. My daughter's life wasn't just a tragedy waiting to happen. She had laughed, she had loved, she had left kindness in the world that still ripples outward, touching lives she never even met. And that is meaning. I still don't have all the answers, maybe I never will, but I do know this. Life is not about avoiding suffering, it's about what we do with it. Do we let it harden us, turn us bitter, or do we take it, shape it, and use it to become something greater. So tell me, what has life taught you about meaning? Have you found wisdom in your hardest moments? Let's talk about it in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. 7. Lifelong learning. The Greek philosopher Plato once said, "The learning and knowledge that we have is, at the most, but little compared with that of which we are ignorant." Centuries later, Confucius echoed a similar truth. Real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. The wisest people throughout history have understood that stagnation is death, that the moment we believe we know everything, we stop growing. Life is a teacher, and those who remain students, those who stay curious, adaptable, and open to new ideas, are the ones who never truly grow old, because a mind that learns is a mind that stays alive. There was a time when I believed the world had passed me by. It was a slow realization, the kind that creeps up on you over the years. One day, you're fixing the neighbor's radio. The next, you don't even understand how to turn on the latest smartphone. The world moves fast, too fast sometimes, and for a while, I let myself believe that my time for learning was over. Then I met Clara. Clara was 76 when she enrolled in her first college course. She told me she had always wanted to study history, but back when she was young, women weren't exactly encouraged to pursue education. "I got married, raised my kids," she said, and before I knew it, the years just slipped away. I met her at a local cafe, where she sat hunched over a laptop, her glasses perched on the edge of her nose, typing with slow determination. I asked her what she was doing. "Writing a paper on ancient civilizations," she said with a grin. "Apparently I have to cite my sources now. Didn't have to do that back when I was just reading for fun." I laughed, but I couldn't shake the feeling of admiration, and maybe a little shame. Here I was, thinking I was too old to learn, while she was out here challenging herself, diving into new experiences, refusing to let her mind retire just because her body had aged. She told me something that stuck with me. "The world isn't leaving you behind," she said. "You're the one deciding not to keep up." I went home that night and thought about all the things I had convinced myself I was too old to do: learn how to use a computer, pick up a new hobby, even read about subjects I had ignored for most of my life. Somewhere along the way, I had mistaken comfort for contentment, so I changed, slowly, at first. I learned how to send emails. I started reading about history, first for fun, then because I realized how much I didn't know. I even learned how to video chat with my grandkids, something that used to feel like an impossible task. And you know what? My world didn't shrink, it expanded. That's the thing about learning, it keeps you young. It reminds you that life still has something to offer, that your mind is still capable, still hungry. The people who stop learning, stop trying, they're the ones who grow old before their time. So tell me, what's something new you've learned recently? Have you challenged yourself, or have you let fear keep you still? Let's talk in the comments. I'd love to hear how you're keeping your mind alive. 8. Sense of humor. The ancient Greek philosopher Democritus was known as the laughing philosopher because he believed that humor was the best response to life's absurdities. He once said, "A life without cheerfulness is like a long journey without an inn." Thousands of years later, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius echoed this wisdom. "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." Across time and cultures, sages have agreed. Laughter is not just entertainment, it is resilience, a way to lighten burdens and remind ourselves that life is too short to be lived seriously all the time. I have buried friends. I have seen wars begin and end. I have watched entire ways of life disappear, replaced by new things I don't always understand. And yet, through all of it, I have never stopped laughing. People think wisdom comes from suffering. They're wrong. Wisdom comes from knowing when to laugh, even when suffering is knocking at your door. I learned that lesson from my old friend Charlie. Charlie was the kind of man who could find humor in anything. He wasn't rich, he wasn't famous, he was just a mechanic who worked with grease-stained hands and whistled while he worked. But if there was one thing he was known for, it was his ability to make anyone laugh, no matter how bad the situation was. I remember one particular day decades ago. The factory we worked at had just announced layoffs. Men were pacing the floor, whispering about how they would feed their families, how they would keep their homes. The air was thick with fear. Then Charlie walked in, holding a cardboard box. "Well, boys," he said, grinning, "I just heard the news. Looks like I've been laid off. But don't you worry, I stole enough office supplies to start my own business." He turned the box upside down and out fell a single stapler and 2 pens. The room was silent for a moment. Then one by one, people started laughing, not because losing a job was funny, but because Charlie had given us permission to laugh at our own fear. And that's the thing about humor. It doesn't change reality, it doesn't erase pain, but it makes things bearable. Charlie never got rich, he never had an easy life, but he lived to 92, and at his funeral, there wasn't a dry eye or a straight face. His family made sure of that. They told stories about the time he pretended to be a priest just to get free spaghetti at a church event, or how he convinced an entire group of people that he once wrestled an alligator he hadn't. And as I sat there listening, I realized something. Charlie had left behind more than just memories, he had left behind joy. I think about him often. Whenever life gets too heavy, whenever the world seems too dark, I hear his voice in my head. "Come on now, don't take it all so seriously, you'll never get out of here alive anyway. So tell me, when was the last time you laughed so hard your stomach hurt? When was the last time you found joy in the middle of a mess? Share a funny story in the comments. Let's keep the laughter going. After all, what else is life for?" Life is a journey, and if you're still embracing these habits, staying active, keeping your mind sharp, nurturing relationships, planning wisely, finding purpose, learning continuously, and laughing often, you are truly one of a kind. You are proof that age is not a limitation, but a testament to a life well lived. But here's the real question. Which of these habits speaks to you the most? What keeps you going, keeps you growing, and makes your life richer every day? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if this video inspired you, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe, because wisdom is best when shared. Until next time, keep living, keep learning, and most importantly, keep smiling.